Welcome to the Ask Jordan podcast, answering your questions about selling on Amazon. Now, he's peeled off more prices than a family of shoplifters from Long Island, New York. Here's your host, Jordan Malik.
Hello, this is Jordan Malik. You're listening to the Ask Jordan podcast. This is our 9th podcast. I want to thank you, the listeners, so much for making this very popular. We are now, if you go to iTunes and do a search, even though our podcasts are available on other platforms aside from iTunes, if you go to iTunes and do a search for Sell on Amazon or Amazon FBA or Amazon Seller, we're like the first podcast or one of the first podcasts to appear. And I'm not lost in the fact that that comes from you, the listeners. The popularity rankings of the podcast are extremely high, and the feedback has been positive. It looks like you like the format, and you're learning a lot, and I'm very appreciative for you being such loyal and avid listeners. So every episode, we answer a question from you about selling on Amazon. If you miss any of our other podcasts, go to AskJordan.net, where you can instantly listen or download them or get them on iTunes. Past episodes, future episodes, just go to AskJordan.net to get started. All the links for the iTunes or anywhere else any other way you want to download them are right there, AskJordan.net. Some of you have been calling in questions that have already been answered. So if you listened or take a look at the titles of the previous episodes at AskJordan.net, you'll see that some of you have already called in questions. You're probably wondering why hasn't Jordan answered my question that may have been already answered in a previous podcast. We're going to answer one question this episode, just like all other episodes, so keep checking back at AskJordan.net. You can get 7 of my best-selling ebooks if your question is answered on this podcast. So at the end of this podcast, in just a few minutes, I want to tell you exactly how to do that. One more message before we get into the question. Amazing Selling Machine. Amazing Selling Machine is reared its head, and they're doing a lot of promotions. You may be getting emails from people you've never heard of or seen before, from gurus and experts saying, check out Amazing Selling Machine, and there's a lot of hype around it, and it's a nearly $4,000 course or program or system, whatever you want to call it, that claims to teach you how to sell on Amazon and how to do it. And I am not recommending it. I was aggressively pursued by the program's creators last year, late 2013, just a few months ago. And I refused to sell it for a lot of, I think, valid reasons. So to get all that information, you go to my blog, jordanmalik.com/ASM, jordanmalik.com/A as in Apple, S as in Sam, M as in microphone. And there's the full details there on why I'm recommending other alternatives that cost a mere tiny fraction of the price of the nearly $4,000 Amazing Selling Machine. So please check that out. Now, our question today is from David. Go ahead, David.
Hi, Jordan. My name's David, and I have a 2-part question. First of all, how do you deal with negative feedback? I've received a small number of total feedbacks, and unfortunately a couple negative ones, so I know that having a negative feedback can adversely affect your seller rating. If you've received any negative feedbacks, how have you been dealing with them? And also, do you actively try to get your buyers to provide you with feedback, or do you just let it happen organically? Love to know how you deal with feedback. Thanks a lot.
David, I could tell by your accent and your caller ID on the call you made, you're from Easton, or the Easton, Massachusetts area. So I actually, right before I moved to Long Island, my wife and I lived in Canton, Mass. We nearly broke living in Canton, Massachusetts. So you weren't too far away. We used to go to the famous ice cream place, I forget the name, something Farms, in Easton. So anyway, nice to hear somebody with a familiar accent. Anyway, let me answer the second part of your question first. I use a tool, and I'm going to give a bunch of resources later on in this podcast for this, but I use a tool called feedback5.com. Feedback5.com. It's the word feedback and the word 5, F-I-V-E.com. If you sign up for a trial and use code JBMalik at checkout, that's J as in John, B as in boy, M as in Michael, A as in apple, L as in lollipop, I as in indigo, K as in kryptonite, JB Malik at checkout, you'll get an extra over 2 weeks. So it comes to like a full 1 month free trial. That's a tool that I use to get more positive feedback. Okay, it's an automated tool that was kind of already vetted by Amazon. They're not endorsed by Amazon, but Amazon knows they exist. And it's basically an online tool that automatically solicits your buyers for feedback at your set designated time after they purchase. So you don't need this tool. You can manually email your buyers asking them to leave feedback. But there's some rules and restrictions around that I want to get to in a minute. So that's the tool that I use to take care of that for me, because when we start getting into, you're selling 10, 15, 20 items per week and up, to remember to email people at a certain time after they've received the item, making sure is everything okay, and keeping track of all that becomes a very laborious process. So this tool I've been using for probably 3 years now. It's called Feedback 5, and it does all that for me. And when I get a negative feedback, I get an email alert from Feedback 5. So the key to getting, if you've been dinged, first let me say this, that there's a lot of unnecessary fear out there about getting a negative feedback. I can understand if you get 1 or 2 negative feedbacks every couple weeks, or if you're doing a large volume of transaction, you're getting 1 or 2 negative feedbacks every day. Say if you're doing like hundreds of transactions a day, I understand that. There are people out there in some of these free Amazon seller forums that think that your feedback, if you get a single negative feedback or any significant amount, it's the kiss of death and you don't belong on Amazon and you should drop dead, etc. So that's not true. These are innocent mistakes of you having a wrong expiration date, or you sell a used appliance that doesn't work or something, I can understand that mistakes are going to happen, and Amazon understands that. As long as you're working to correct those things and respond to them quickly, you're going to be fine. So let's get into how to manage when you do get negative feedback. And I'm going to refer you to a few resources here. The blog post I wrote on this, I've given you three ways to handle negative feedback, or 3 resources really. One is free, one is $19.95, and the third is Feedback 5, which is a monthly fee. There's various programs depending on how many features you want. So bit.ly/ this is a redirect. So you type this in, it'll bring you right to my blog page on the topic. bit.ly/fix negative. That's all lowercase, all together. bit.ly/ the word fix, as in fix a car, negative, as in negative feedback. bit.ly/fix negative. That's going to bring you to a page with my proven resources of how to deal with negative feedback. Now, if somebody leaves me a negative feedback on something, usually the first thing I do, really regardless of the price of the item, unless the price is like more, greater than say $35, $50, I immediately refund the customer regardless. That is, if I think their feedback is a legitimate complaint. Okay, so there are some instances where the customer will get an item and they'll say, gee, this tasted funny. Let's just say it's coffee, a package of coffee that I sent. I will immediately refund the customer after they've left negative feedback. When I get alerted to it, or you just visiting my feedback page, I'll immediately refund the customer instantly, logging into Amazon.com and processing a refund through the seller interface, 100% refund. Then I'll email them after I refund them. Never email a customer and say, I'll refund you if you lift your negative feedback. That's against Amazon's rules. You can be suspended for that if you do that one too many times. I'll refund them immediately, because the cost of my time invested to try to get the product back, and then further ticking off the customer, and then inspecting the product and seeing if is it going to be shipped to Amazon's warehouse? Am I going to be getting it back here? I don't do any of that. I refund the customer immediately. I send them an email. Sorry you had a bad experience. You do not have to return the item. I've refunded you 100% in full. My apologies for the inconvenience, and it's done. And then I'll actually say my Feedback 5 system that I use, the Feedback 5 system that I use does this for me, but I'll usually say, can I ask you to kindly lift the feedback that you left? So if they don't agree to lift the negative feedback or remove the negative feedback, sometimes I have seen that Amazon seller support will actually lift it even though they're not supposed to. So if you submit a request to Amazon seller support and you say, this customer has left negative feedback for the wrong reasons, and explain to them the reason, sometimes Amazon will lift the negative feedback for you and call it a mistake on their behalf. They say this is a mistake that Amazon made in fulfillment of the item, and that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. There are legitimate reasons why Amazon may lift the negative feedback where you don't have to refund the customer. If a customer leaves a cuss word, says this idiot seller sent me the wrong product, Amazon, if you request it of them, will lift the negative feedback score. They'll remove it and say it because the customer violated the policy and they called you a negative name, or if they use a cuss word. If the customer leaves a negative feedback and their entire review that accompanies the negative feedback is a review of the product and not any reflection of you as a seller. If they say, I ordered the iPhone 4S and the reception was horrible because I live in Wisconsin or whatever, that is a product review. And if they say nothing else, and that's all they say is a review of the product in their comments, and it's accompanied by a negative score, you can request Amazon to remove that because it's strictly a product review. So I know I'm spilling a lot here, but all of this is spelled out for you on my resource page for this very topic, bit.ly/fixnegative, bit.ly/fixnegative. There's a link to a free resource on fixing negative feedback. There's a link to a highly recommended ebook on managing your negative feedback and how to fix it. It's $19.95. Or you can do neither of the three and get Feedback 5, and that's what I use. So, David, I hope that answers your question. David gets all 7 of my best-selling ebooks about selling on Amazon and eBay. Their current retail price is well over $75 total. So, David, please contact me at AskJordan.net. Click on the little mailbox in the upper right-hand corner of AskJordan.net, not the mailbox, a little envelope icon in the upper right-hand corner. Send me an email. Now, if you, the listener, if you have a question about selling on Amazon that you'd like answered, go to AskJordan.net or call 516-619 online. That's 516-619-6654. If I pick your question to answer, you, just like David, will get 7 of my best-selling ebooks. Total price for everyone else is over $75, and you get to hear your voice on my podcast. Now, while you're at AskJordan.net, please subscribe to my free newsletter for Amazon and eBay sellers. I give away a lot of ideas, strategies, examples of what to sell, how to grow your business, etc. So go to AskJordan.net, scroll down on the right-hand side for the sign-up form. Thanks for listening to the Ask Jordan podcast. We'll see you again in our next episode.